standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highways stretch forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen ones. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
Look at that. All right. So we have established that my mime skills are quite terrible. You know, what do you do, right? There we go. Sorry, guys. We've been dealing with some technical issues here. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for Late Night Coffee Talk. Sorry about that. It's we got a lot of buttons flying around here. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I've got my coffee, and as I was really terribly miming a moment ago, I have a sneaking suspicion there's going to be a lot more talk than coffee tonight, but brought the extra big cup just in case. Anyway, if you're joining us for the very first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time of the week where I take a break from the work that we're doing here to make Texas a self-governing, free and independent nation. Come fire up the camera and answer your questions. We come in with, excuse me, we come in with no preset agenda. I've got sometimes I may have things I want to talk about, but tonight and almost every other coffee talk, you guys are the ones that drive the agenda. So let me do this because I can't believe it, man. I mean, we're falling down on production. It's terrible. Very terrible. It's my fault. I didn't hit the button. Okay. Anyway, here's what I'd like for you to do. If you have questions for me tonight, here's what you got to do. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to drop your questions in the chat. Kara's in the other room, and she's watching and monitoring and dropping them over here, so I'll see them. And while you're there on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can get notified whenever we do any new videos, any live streams. We always send them over to YouTube. And look, if you're in the YouTube chat, be sure to give us a super chat. We would love to have your support. It's your financial support that helps keep this project moving forward to our eventual goal of independence. If you're watching this on Facebook, it's a very similar situation. Just drop your question in the comments on this video. And while you're there, be sure to like and share because we need your help to get the word out. Additionally, we are broadcasting on X, which has been the platform of choice as of late for most of you. And if you want to drop your question there, just drop it in the chat on X and we'll be sure to see that. And then, of course, as I think 2 weeks ago, right, we are now live streaming on Rumble, but we still don't have the connection from the Rumble chat to here. So we can only see it after the fact. But guys on Rumble, you have an opportunity to do what everybody else is doing. If you look at the bottom of your screen right there, it says it. Email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org, and we'll be sure to get to them. As a matter of fact, I have a whole parcel that you guys have sent in already. Excuse me. Wow. Yeah, you guys have sent quite a few of them in, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I tell you what we need to do before I get to your questions. Just want to give a couple of quick shout out. So last weekend, I got an opportunity to participate in the Global Conference Summit for Self-Determination, hosted by the folks over at TEXIT, and got to be there alongside of them, some folks from New Hampshire, from Cape in South Africa. I mean, it was just, it was a lot of people that were there to discuss and support the idea of self-determination. A lot of independence movements around the world. And I got to tell you, it's been really, there's been this crazy outbreak of self-determination and independence. People had this idea that somehow it was going to tamp down, but we're booming here, but I'm seeing it boom everywhere. I heard from Javier Hernandez today with Puerto Rico. He's with he wrote the book PR Exit for Puerto Rico Exit. But Javier actually generated a memo, got together with some economists, generated a memo that has made it all the way to the White House, essentially saying that, look, if the United States federal government wants to save about $800 billion, Trump could essentially put Puerto Rico on the path to independence with an executive order. So pretty amazing stuff going on there. There's an article about it on news.tnm.me. So go check that out. And then, of course, we're having some conversations with the folks from Nuevo Leon, Mexico, who have apparently already set a referendum or in the works of setting a referendum, I think in 2027 or 2028, and we're looking at having their leader on the Texas News podcast for an interview. Got to hang out with Larkin Jackson at that summit from Free Louisiana, and he is already scheduled. So we're going to have him on an upcoming episode of the Texas News podcast. So really pretty amazing stuff breaking out all over. Last night, in addition, I got to participate and sort of bookend the reboot of the TEXIT Accelerator. I talked about it last week, but our Department of Organizational Development, our guys that are working on organizing our counties, have rebooted the TEXIT Accelerator and are hosting it now every single solitary month on the fourth Tuesday. And it is geared exclusively for local leadership applicants. So if you want to be a part of the next one, be sure to go to local.tnm.me and find your county, jam your hand in the air and say, I am ready to make Texas a free and independent nation. I'm willing to get to work right in my county to make it happen. So congratulations to all those folks over there in organizational development, all those people that attended, all those leadership applicants that are going through massive amounts of training. And when I say massive, it's not a joke. It's not. I'm just going to say this. To say that it's massive might be a bit of an understatement. I don't know. Anyway, let's get down to it. You guys ready? Man. I'm gonna, you know what? I see this one here, and I know, Kara, you did not star this one on purpose, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it, and you know which one I'm talking about. But that's not going to be the first one. Let's just get this one out of the way. Doreen says, howdy, coffee, how do you get to sleep? I will tell you, if you were to go in right now, and I didn't scroll through the chat to see, but I can imagine you are getting answered by people in the chat who are going to swear up and down that I don't sleep. And that's not true. I do sleep. Depending on what we have going on, what the project load looks like, what the task list looks like, everyone will tell you I hate unchecked boxes on my to-do list. Anyone who has to deal with me on a regular basis tells me I do not like loose ends. I don't like unchecked boxes on the to-do list. And so it kind of comes and goes in cycles, right? So I literally do drink coffee from the time I roll out of the rack until the time I fall face flat into my pillow, whatever time that is. So, you know, you will look if things are sort of hot and heavy in the organization, I may average 2 to 4 hours a night. When things are a little less pedal to the metal, I'll get solid sleep. But that may be after pulling a 24-hour hitch working on a project. So my sleep is all over the place, and coffee is not the contributing factor. In fact, it's coffee that helps fuel this to make sure that I can get all of these things done. So I appreciate it. I mean, I get to sleep. It doesn't keep me from going to sleep, but it definitely does keep me awake to get things done. So thank you for that question, Doreen. Let's go over here to email. It's from Chris. Chris says, is the staff for each legislator here assigned, chosen by the legislator from a given list, or personally handpicked by the legislators themselves? The legislators get to hire their staff, and they get to pick. Now, granted, for experienced staffers, that pool, just there's a kind of a finite number of those people, and depending on what the composition of the staff is for the legislator, they may be able to pluck some people out that have policy experience to be their legislative director. Various staffers, depending on kind of what they do in the office. You may get some interns or some fresh folks out of college, or you may even get interns from the university or whatever. But I will tell you, it's a really interesting question, Chris, because I was watching an interview that State Representative Andy Hopper, you guys know Andy, he's Texas First Pledge signer. He had essentially an interaction with House administration over, there was a male in one of the female bathrooms, and so there was a interaction with Charlie Guerin, who I believe is chair of House administration. It used to be Will Metcalf, and there's a whole story there. I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to tell Andy's business, but the point here is that Guerin made an indication to him that House administration could fire staff, and that seems to be a bit of a revelation. So while legislators apparently do get to pick their staff, Guerin sort of insinuated that there is an ability there for the House administration to fire a staffer. So I don't know what that is. Maybe we'll get Andy or some of the other legislators on, and that's a question we can pose to him. But I am quite interested in that. Anyway, thank you for that question, Chris. Really do appreciate it. All right. Here we go. This is the one that I think Kara was reluctant to put on the screen because it has to do with Social Security, but I don't know that I would term it as the Social Security question. I mean, I guess technically it is the Social Security question. And for those of you that are just sort of unaware of this, for many, many, many years, this was indeed the most commonly asked question about what's going to happen to Social Security. Now, good news is it is no longer the most asked question, which is great. I'm happy about that. But it does still come up from time to time. So, Ron, congratulations. You made it through, and you got to ask me on camera the Social Security question that I've answered many, many times before. So here's what I'm going to do. Before I give you sort of the brief answer to this question, I'm going to just direct you to texitnow.org. And any of you that have questions about sort of these fundamentals of TEXIT and what that process looks like, and the various stages of it, and things like agriculture and defense and the constitutionality and Social Security and all those things, the answers are at texitnow.org. So if you want more of an unpack there, you can go to texitnow.org. Indeed, you can actually go to the news site at news.tnm.me and go in the search box and type Social Security, and you'll find all kinds of additional articles about the Social Security issue. That being said, when you talk about Social Security, you got to kind of look at it in two ways, right? You got to look at those that are paying in right now but are not receiving. And then, folks like yourself, from what I can tell here, it says you're already on Social Security, so that means you're already receiving federal pension benefits, of which Social Security is one. Now, it's current federal policy that if you have paid into the system, you can collect the benefit no matter where you live. And that's not us talking. That is indeed the Social Security Administration. And it is what has, created thriving expat communities, people that are retirees that move from the United States to go live in other countries where the cost of living is far, far, far less expensive. And so they say they move to Guadalajara, Mexico, and their dollar goes further there. And because their dollar goes further there, that tells you that they still get their Social Security. So you earn the benefit, you get paid the benefit. So that being said, there are these fearmongers out there that talk about this idea somehow that, well, if Texas leaves, then the United States will stop paying those benefits. And you have to remember, those benefits are accrued benefits by the individuals, completely independent of their residential status where they reside. So, what they're going to have to essentially do is, if that were to happen, is say, we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw grandma in a ditch because we don't like the way that you voted. The good news about that is Texas overpays anywhere from about $103 to $160 billion annually into the federal system. And federal pension benefit payments into Texas residents, people that are living in Texas, is estimated, I think the last time I looked at the numbers, about $74 billion. So with the money that we would no longer be overpaying into the federal government staying here, if the federal government decided to do that and cut off those federal pension benefits, we literally could cover that and still have enough left over every single year to do something like eliminate the property tax, right? I mean, that money stays here. We would no longer pay into Washington, D.C. So I'm addressing that part of the question, but for those of you out there that are still paying into that system and are not drawing on those federal pension benefits, I think it's important to remember that the United States federal government has raided the Social Security cookie jar for many, 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 many years, to the point that all of the experts continue to predict the demise of Social Security, or at least having it harmed enough to substantially affect benefits. It was started at 2040, then it was at 2038. So they keep revising that estimate down closer and closer and closer, which I call the date with the destiny. It's that date that eventually all of our retirees are going to have to pay the piper for continuing to support Texas being shackled to what is essentially a political and economic Titanic heading for the bottom of the North Atlantic. So anyway, Ron, thank you so much for your question. Let's clear some of these bad boys out. Man, I'm getting a lot of Doge questions tonight. Fun. Okay. All right, let's go to one from email. Stacy asked this. Hi, Stacy. Hope you're feeling better. I think you're on the mend. Anyway, Stacy says, on a previous late night coffee talk, you said that many Texans erroneously believe that Texas joined the Union due to our war debt and that the Union paid it off. Count me as one of those ill-informed people. So what's the real story? Why did we make that mistake in 1845? It's a great question, and we'll take a little trip down memory lane. These are always fun questions for me because we talk so much about sort of the present and the future that we don't get to dive too much into history that much. But let me correct something really quickly in your question. What I said is that many people believe that the Union erroneously paid off our debts, right? Which they did not. Having those debts dealt with was one of the major motivating factors. So you have to go back, and let me just kind of rewind the clock. Texas was barely settled, pretty much all frontier when the revolution happened. I mean, there was not a lot of infrastructure. I mean, these guys, when we talk about having a vision, and being kind of like, look, I'm just going to go take the jump off the cliff, right? Having that sort of spirit of, we're right, whatever the consequences. I think it was Sam Houston who said, do right and risk the consequences. Well, that's essentially what they did. So Texas was ill-equipped, even in the early 19th century, to establish an independent republic. But the principle of self-government meant more to them than any of the difficulties that they would face. But there was almost immediately, because a lot of the people that had come across, that had come into Texas to help settle, they wanted annexation of the United States after they left Mexico. And so there was this kind of uproar of voices, almost at the point that the guns fell silent on the plain of San Jacinto. The voices cried out, some wanting Texas to join the Union. But interestingly enough, the United States had no interest. There were some voices in the United States that wanted Texas to join the Union, but there was a tremendous amount of opposition to Texas joining the Union. In fact, you go from the time that, you start looking at it, so that 1843, 1844, 1845 time period where Texas eventually did join the Union, you'll find an interesting cast of characters actually arguing against Texas joining the Union. One of those was a congressman from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln, who got on the floor of Congress and argued pretty vehemently against Texas joining the Union. And so the efforts were rebuffed. And then when it came up again, James K. Polk, who was he was, if you go read Polk's inaugural speech, you'll look and see, you can see what his viewpoint was on the issue. But there were forces that were at work in the federal government that really wanted Texas. And part of the motivation that really changed them on this issue was that when Texas had been rebuffed in its desire to join the Union the first time, it was a bit of a blow against the pride of the Texans who had just won the revolution. And so they were not happy with that attitude, not by any stretch of the imagination. They felt like it was sort of an affront to their character. They felt like almost like it was an insult. And so they said, okay, cool. If that's what you want, then here's what we're going to do is we're going to make friends elsewhere. And so that's one of the things that President Lamar did as president of the Republic of Texas, was he really expanded international outreach and diplomacy. As a matter of fact, if you go look at the TNM library, the online library that we have, it's got, not just a lot of academic documents, it's got a lot of historical documents. And some of those are the treaties that were signed by the Republic of Texas government, including with England, with the Hanseatic League, which eventually became Germany, with France. I mean, in Austin, you still have the French Legation Museum, which was basically the French embassy in the Republic of Texas. And so there was a lot of this outreach that was happening. It's like, okay, fine. If you don't want us this way, then we will just go and we will be a phenomenal brand new entity on the North American continent. And by the way, here is our proposed map. And that proposed map that was drawn up, I think Houston did it, went all the way to the Pacific Ocean. I mean, that was the message. It's like, if you don't want us, that's fine. We'll just turn this thing into a massive juggernaut, and a power to rival the Eastern United States. So you get to all that, and the motivations became clear because there were still difficulties in the Republic period. You still had issues with the frontier and the border. There were issues with Mexico. It just kind of goes on and on. But what really sunk the 8 ball on the U.S. side was the fear that, okay, because you got to remember, you had the Revolution, the American Revolution, and then you had the War of 1812. There was a concern about increased influence of the United Kingdom in North America, and they did not want the UK to essentially, they didn't want Great Britain to gain a foothold in the South. They already had Canada, and you got to think it was only 1812, so 15, not even 20, 25 years or so that the Brits had burned the White House to the ground in the War of 1812. They didn't want the Brits to gain a foothold in the southern part of the continent. And that was the big fear. So they utilized that fear to essentially overcome it. The Republic of Texas, because the way nations do business with one another is via treaty, right? The Republic of Texas Senate tendered a treaty to the United States Senate, which was voted down. You hear people all the time say, well, Texas was annexed by a treaty and we can go, and that's not, Texas wasn't annexed by treaty. The treaty was actually voted down by the United States Senate. So they pulled a bit of a tactical maneuver because, let's be honest, the federal government has been pretty corrupt from almost from the jump. They said, fine, we'll just annex by joint resolution of Congress. And essentially that's what they did. The people of Texas held a referendum to join. The referendum won, and Congress passed this joint resolution of annexation. You read that joint resolution of annexation, and I'm just going to encourage you to do all your research because I'm not going to spend my whole time talking about this, although I could. But if you go read that joint resolution of annexation, one of the things that Texas had originally tendered as part of Texas joining the Union was that the federal government would take over Texas war debt with Mexico. And that was soundly rejected in the joint resolution of annexation. So Texas wound up joining the Union, still saddled with its debt, the United States effectively not being able to fulfill its obligations on the border. That eventually led to the Mexican-American War, but A lot of people don't realize in 1848 and 1849, I may have talked about this before, and I don't want to be repetitive, but the governor at the time raised a militia, aka another another Texian army, and was preparing to march them into Santa Fe because the United States federal government went in there and claimed that it was not Texas. It's like, that's not what it is. So that eventually led to the 1850 Compromise. That being said, all of the reasons that Texas joined the United States were for the same guarantees that other states got, which was, well, I mean, it's essentially a free trade zone, right? It's a mutual defense compact. Those were kind of the two big things that concern Texans the most. And so, that's why you can have, even in the modern day, congressmen like Chip Roy get on the floor of Congress and go, if the Texans in 1844 and 1845 had seen what's going on right now, they would have never voted to join the Union. That is legitimate, because all of the reasons and rationale that they had have effectively evaporated to the point that there is no benefit. And I think it could be argued, and I think it's probably wrong to look at it from our modern perspective. But I think if you were to go present this case again to those people at the time, they would have chosen very differently. So anyway, I believe that answered your question, and I appreciate that, Stacy. Thank you very much. Okay. I got 2 Doge questions, and I have no method to put them on the screen at the same time. So so here's what we're going to do. Hang on. Let's just take these together. They're really 2 Doge questions. Oh, let me remind you guys, because we're at the midway point. If you have questions, be sure to drop them in the chat on YouTube, as a comment on Facebook, in the chat on X, or you'll see an email address flash at the bottom of the screen. You can email them to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. And you know what? Apparently, we're getting them on TNM Social as well, so that's pretty cool. So if you're on TNM Social, some of you're just dropping me messages. I think that's actually kind of cool. So let's take one there. Okay. Well, it'll come to me. Let's get to one of these others real quick. Yeah. All right. Let's go here. So let's tackle the Doge questions. I think that is a worthwhile activity for us, right? Okay, first and foremost, here's the first one. Does Texas currently have a department that is approximately equivalent to Doge? No, is the answer. And I will tell you that when the House committees were formed, and I'm trying to remember the name of the Texas House Committee. Hang on, I'm just going to pull it up for you. House Representatives committees. There we go. The Texas House of Representatives formed a committee, called it, and they, because they want to play off the Doge name, they called it the Delivery of Government Efficiency Committee. Okay, they put Giovanni Capriglione as the chair, and because of the rules, they put Salman Bojani as the vice chair of the Democrat. And allegedly, that's what this committee is supposed to do. This committee is allegedly, from the House side of things, supposed to look at government efficiency. Now, whether that's the case or not, this may be sort of a case of the feel goods and, a bit of Me Tooism and wanting to ride the coattails of something that is obviously very popular. I do not anticipate big things from it. Now, that's because of the behavior that we've seen out of the House. Expectations for pretty much everything there are about as low as they can be without being zero. Okay. But that being said, there are some there are some things that they, I think, could do. But we don't have a department, so to speak, that directly addresses the government efficiency aspect of this. Not an executive level department. You just have a committee that was formed in the Texas House, which virtually no one has any confidence in getting anything done. So, if that kind of answers your question, but right on the heels of that, Donnie says hypothetical. Texas has our own Doge. Top 3 departments or agencies you would cut. 3? Do I only get 3? That is a good question. I don't know. I don't know that I can answer that right off the top of my head, because Texas has a lot of departments that people don't realize that only exist because we've got, Byzantine draconian legislation and statutes about certain things. There are, from my perspective, Donnie, I know you're asking me personally. I don't know that I could come up with 3 off the top of my head. I think there are far more than 3 that we have to cut. But I think that what Texas really needs is a bit of a top-down structural overhaul. We've got well, I'll give you a good example, because we saw this play out in real time on the committee live streams this week. I got to tell you what, I don't know if you guys are keeping up with Brian Harrison, but you need to, because he is holding these guys to account like nobody's business. For example, because they're dealing with appropriations in the budget right now, he had the big kahuna from the Texas Department of Transportation. He was able to call them out on why DOT was promoting DEI, which seems weird. But honestly, the thing that everyone really should pay attention to is the fact that you had somewhere in the neighborhood of about $5 to $15 million in the budget going to the Texas Department of Transportation, right, which is roads and those things. You guys know what TxDOT does. But that anywhere from $5 to $15 million in the budget was going to the fact that the DOT, the Texas Department of Transportation, has a civil rights division with 50 employees. And it's like, wait a minute. I thought these guys worked on the roads, right? I thought they were building highways and improving infrastructure. Okay, all jokes aside about how long it takes, the joke here in Texas is the shortest distance between point A and point B here in Texas is under construction, right? The fact of the matter is that you've got an entire division of the Texas Department of Transportation that is a civil rights division. It's like, what does that got to do with building our roads? Right, our laws, our laws specify anti-discrimination. I mean, we've got all these things statutorily. So why do we need 50 employees in a titled civil rights division for the Texas Department of Transportation? When you look through government, so to your point, Donnie, I don't know that I could name 3 specific agencies, because I'm not entirely sure that really cuts the mustard for this. When you can go into a department that we definitely need, right, here in Texas, we want to, prepare infrastructure throughout the state. We want good roads, great highways. We want these things. But, when you see that you've got this money being spent for an entire division within one of these agencies, it's just like, come on, guys. That needs to go away. Do we need to get rid of the DOT? No, we just need to go in there and kind of give those guys an enema, right? And you're going to find that. I would say probably, that there are tons of licensing and industry oversight agencies that probably don't need to exist, right? I don't know why in the world, we're having to license people to cut hair. Why is that? Now, the joke writes itself, right? The joke writes itself. But my point is that you're going to find like tons of these things, these little bitty agencies that exist that don't need to exist, and you're going to have pieces, entire divisions of existing agencies that need to be whopper chopped too. So I am an advocate for a top-down examination of every aspect of Texas government, and that's honestly, to me, one of the biggest benefits for us putting TEXIT on the ballot, right? So, we can go through and talk about the legislative steps and things we need to do on the road to independence. We can talk about the fact that a referendum is kind of one of the major milestones on that road to independence. But one of the things the referendum does is it solidifies in the minds of people that we're going to have a debate about governance. And while the relationship that we have with the federal government is the centerpiece of that, Texans begin to kick over all the rocks and look at how we're governed here. So the debate about whether or not Texas should still be a part of the United States and, talking about the grievances that we have with the federal government, it will take center stage. But the natural byproduct of that is it exposes all of the rest of this nonsense that we see at the state level in a way that they will not examine themselves, right? They won't. They won't. So we can have a really awkwardly named committee in the Texas House that's supposed to look at these things. You could even spin up a version of Doge here as an executive level agency. But at the end of the day, the real examination that's going to point these things out is going to come in the context of a debate on Texas independence. So anyway, thanks for that question, Donnie. So both to you and Frank, you guys are on the same. You guys are on the same page tonight. Lots of Doge. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's check this out. This is not a question. This is a hello. Hello from Graham from the English Constitution Party. Graham, thanks for giving us a shout out tonight. He says, he's writing us all the way from England, folks. He says, when I make my political asylum application, it will be to Texas jurisdiction, not anywhere else. Safest place on earth as a nation in its own right. Thank you very much, Graham. It's great to hear from you, bud. If you guys didn't get to see Graham, Graham spoke at the TEXIT conference and just absolutely brought the house down. All right, this question's from Jasmine. This came in on TNM Social. Says, hello, Mr. Miller. Is our governor aware of the California tax collectors in Houston, Texas? Also about the AI buildings in Austin and Houston, Texas. We never voted on them being in Texas. Are they even allowed to build AI buildings for surveillance in Texas? I don't know about the AI buildings, so we'll have to do some research on that. But I can speak to about whether or not the governor is aware of the California tax collectors. I do not know if the governor is aware. There's enough noise that's being made about it that he should. I know that I will tell you that I have seen that news article passed around an awful lot, and particularly in Austin circles. And we do know that the governor or his staff, someone over there, is regularly watching what we say on the TNM website, and we know that because there's a whole lot of reasons we know that. But hearing him crib off of our playbook is not an uncommon thing. So I would suspect he would be aware because it's made a lot of noise. But look, Jasmine, I would directly engage. I would just issue this challenge to anyone out there. I've directly engaged the governor's office. Call his opinion hotline. Go to his website, his government website. Find the phone number and call. That is you make enough noise over there, and you can see some things happen. But I would find out. We've got Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, rolling up to a lottery ticket seller and shooting video for social media. So, maybe hit the lieutenant governor up too. It would not hurt. Okay. Thank you for your question, Jasmine. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get over here to the chat. Man, we're rolling toward the end. All right, guys. Hey, Email your last minute questions to coffeetalk@etnm.org. Drop them in the YouTube chat. Drop them in the chat on X. And be sure to drop them in the comments on Facebook. And if you're on Rumble, I'm sorry, we still haven't got it connected, but it's coming. We will figure it out. I promise. Okay, let's look at this one. Lance asks, will things like the Sharia city in Plano be acceptable in an independent Texas? That is a good question. So for those of you who don't know, you're asking about a post-independence thing, and I'll just tell you that the people ultimately will decide that. And if I had to guess, I'm going to say the people are going to say no. But for those of you who don't know, essentially what is happening is there is a Muslim-only housing development that is being put in Plano. And interestingly enough, if you go look at sort of the anti-discrimination housing laws, they do not allow you to discriminate on things like race, gender, those sorts of things. But there are two carve-outs, okay? And in the two carve-outs in that housing law, remember, because they only have our best interests at heart, right? The only two carve-outs are for private clubs, right? Which is something that you kind of see often, where you have private clubs that essentially set up a housing development, gated communities, etc., where you have to be a member. And then, but the other is a religious carve out for religious communities. And so that carve out is being utilized by a developer to essentially establish a Muslim only community in Plano. And it has got people in an absolute uproar because they're seeing really for the first time how these laws really apply. When they pass these laws about discrimination or whatever it is, it's never applied in the way that a normal person would think about it. And so because they create all of these Byzantine loopholes and these workarounds and everything else, essentially what you wind up with is a scenario where people begin to realize that, hey, that law wasn't meant to protect all of us. It was just meant to protect certain subsets of society. So the issue that I think is sort of bigger than this. I mean, we're all going to be in an uproar about this just simply because of the sort of implications of what they're calling a Sharia law city, right? And I don't know that part of it, but I think the bigger implication here is its impact on the debate about local control versus state control. Okay, so if you've watched this, these live streams for any length of time, we've talked about this. I've had this conversation on multiple occasions. One of the challenges we run into with municipalities, and why often I say that local government can be far more tyrannical than the state government or even the federal government, is that they feel, because they are an entity, they will call them home rule cities or whatever it is, they feel like they exist as a sovereign entity to a certain extent, and basically will give the state, who in a lot of these instances, particularly where your larger municipalities are concerned, are more freedom loving than the municipalities themselves. And I got to tell you, that's a heck of a statement when you think about some of the tyrannical, oppressive crap the state has done. But the bottom line here is, and the thing to always remember is, cities are political subdivisions of the state of Texas. In other words, they exist only as long as the state of Texas allows them to do so. And so it's been, you think about the conversation that we had, I don't know, 3-4 months ago about Briscoe Cain talking about filing a bill to turn the city of Austin into the capital district and let the state of Texas run the city of Austin because of all of its failures. I mean, you've got a massive homeless problem, drug problem, traffic congestion problem. I mean, you got every problem under the sun. Cops don't want to work in Austin, right? Because it is just turning this lawless hellhole. We had a situation where crime is so bad, the governor had to call the DPS in to essentially keep the peace, like this is some Clint Eastwood movie or some spaghetti western with the Old West. I mean, that's how bad it was. And frankly, it still is. I mean, when we went to go deliver the petitions to the Republican Party of Texas headquarters, we had to walk around human waste on the sidewalk. So, when people are giving San Francisco a bunch of crap for, I guess, they're exceeding their some of their strange population down there trying to give everybody the turd flu because they use the bathroom in the open. Understand that we've got very similar things happening in Austin right now. So, the question is going to be, and I think the debate moving forward in relation to the state and the cities is ultimately who's going to be in control. Who's going to be the boss. I think at the state level, I think there's a tremendous unwillingness to see this sort of, religious segregation or whatever it is, going on in Plano. But on the other side of this is how much local control is the state of Texas willing to take, and are they willing to go toe to toe with the federal government when these guys claim that they're using a carve out in federal law for it? So I think it's going to be an interesting debate to have, but I can tell you that, from my standpoint, in a post-independence Texas, I am one voice among many. The question is not, for me to answer about whether that'll be acceptable. That ultimate question is going to be up to you. I mean, is it acceptable to you now? Will it be acceptable to you then? Will it be acceptable to the rest of the people of Texas? That is only a question that you can decide on the other side of this. Okay. So anyway, thank you for that question, Lance. Okay. Let's get in here. Man, you guys are asking a lot of questions about post-independence tonight. So I'm classifying. Look, we've been in Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine talking about the annexation. We've been talking about Doge. We've been talking about, we're all kind of all over the place. Kind of the present, past, present, future. I'm cool with that. Like I said, you guys can ask me anything, whatever you want. Okay, here we go. Keith says, "Good evening, Daniel." Good evening, Keith. How do you feel about the future Republic of Texas implementing a citizenship by investment program? How do I feel? So you're asking me personally. Well, look, I will tell you that a lot of other countries that look for foreign investment, right? And any of you on here, I'm sure somebody's probably raising holy hell in the chat right now saying that we don't need foreign investment. The fact of the matter is if you want your country to have a massive GDP and you want near full employment, you want those things, you can bootstrap them, or you can kind of kickstart that whole thing and get foreign investment. And foreign investment is not a bad thing. I mean, it's just not. But that being said, there are a lot of countries out there that are really, I mean, that's kind of their thing. I mean, that's how their economy works, is they have to seek foreign investment. And one of those things that they seek is they will allow people to have economic citizenship. There are many countries out there that do it. And I'm not going to pretend like I know all of them, because I haven't kept up with it lately, because I don't ever intend to leave. But I think Nomad Capitalist on YouTube is a great channel if you want to learn more about that. They may be on X as well, but they talk about that. The best place for these global citizens, Nomad Capitalist. It's just great information. But one of the topics that they do talk about frequently is economic citizenship. And so the question becomes, is that something that we're going to need here in Texas? And from my standpoint, I would say I would wait and see. Right. I don't know that economic citizenship would be necessary for us to accelerate our growth. I mean, you have to remember, I don't know if you guys saw the article that we posted about the guy from the investment firm. I'd have to go pull it up because we published a lot of content since then, but it was pretty recent. He was on a podcast in Fort Worth where he's essentially talking about Texas is booming. And it's sort of setting the path for the rest of the Western world. While average growth rates, in GDP and economy are hovering around less than 4%. Texas is growing at a rate of over 7%. I mean, we're just smoking everybody else economically. And a lot of that is coming from, homegrown industries, but a flight of capital from these other countries and states into Texas, where you've got companies that are moving in here. They're investing, they're hiring workers from Texas. Trust me, everybody who believes that every company that moves here ships in their entire workforce does not understand how that works. They don't do that, right? They're going to ship maybe some key personnel, but by and large, anybody that's any company of any size, when they move here, they're hiring here. They're hiring our people, and they're hiring people that may decide that they want to move. But a lot of those folks, you guys worry a lot about how the progressives and leftists are moving into Texas, but you talk to leftists and progressives outside of Texas, they don't want to live here. I mean, they honestly think that we're just 1 degree away from the Taliban, right? So they don't want any part of this. But what is happening is that capital is being moved into Texas, right? That money, that investment. And so the projection is probably by the year 2040, even without independence, barring some sort of economic collapse on the federal side, or a global economic collapse or major downturn, that we will probably be the 5th largest economy in the world. I think we'll surpass the United Kingdom and some of these other places. We're already well on our path as the 8th largest economy in the world. And I firmly believe, honestly, I would have thought we'd have been number 7 by now. But we're moving up the ladder, and we're moving up the ladder considerably. And all of that is because of what's happening here with business and industry, and it just absolutely ballooning the Texas economy. So all of that being said, I don't know that it will be an essential piece of what we have to offer. Post-independence, that's something we can look at. If Texas wants to offer economic citizenship, then that's something that we could absolutely do if we wanted to. But honestly, I don't know that we would have to sully the concept of citizenship by offering it for money. I think that people, I think the United States has proven that when you make citizenship virtually meaningless, to not have any particular value, to the point that people who come here and don't become citizens kind of get treated the same way as citizens, with just a few exceptions. When you devalue citizenship like that, then there is no incentive for citizens to be citizens. I mean, they just don't care. So anyway, we'd have to wait and see. I'd have to look at the pros and cons of that. I think it's interesting, but honestly, I don't know from a standpoint of doing an analysis on it that we would do one anytime soon to look at what that impact would be. Anyway, thank you for that, Keith. But I do think it is an intriguing topic. All right, let's get over here. Okay, let's go back over here to this one. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Here's another one. Nathan in Amarillo sent me a message on TNM Social, and he says, I want to organize events in my town. Didn't we do that one already, Nathan? Didn't we already have this conversation? Wants to organize events in his town, doesn't know where to start. This question, I think maybe we did this one last week too. This seems like a duplicate question maybe, but here it is again. Here's the bottom line. I'm going to tell you, if you want to start organizing events, your first place to go is going to be right here where I'm about to show you, which is right there. Local.tnm.me, right? Where you're going to go connect with your county. If you want to start organizing events and being part of that, then this is where you're going to go. You're going to want to go here. So you're in, where did you say? You're in Amarillo. So you're going to be up here, depending on which part of Amarillo you're in, you're either going to be in Potter or Randall County. And the good news is there are already people in Potter and Randall County that are signing up to be leaders. They're just trying to fill their leadership team now. So my encouragement to you or to anyone else who wants to organize locally, who wants to start organizing and having meetings and being a part of our 254 county solution, just go to local.tnm.me and find your county and get plugged in. I was just bragging on the organizational development department at the very beginning of this and their reboot of the TEXIT Accelerator. And, that's who they were talking to. They were talking to and meeting with leadership prospects, people who jammed their hand in the air and said, I want to do exactly what you were talking about right here in your question. So I would just encourage everyone to do that. Look, we have more training and more resources for local leadership than we have ever had. And there is an excitement at that local level that is just, it's just something I've not seen at the local level. And any of these folks will tell you it is not an easy process. We're not just handing out titles and business cards where your only qualification is, you can fog a mirror. You're 6 feet. You're above the dirt and you can fog a mirror. You have to be committed to the cause of Texas independence. You've got to want to work through the material and work through the process and work the system to help make this a reality. So, I'm not gonna kid you. It's work, and if you want to do it right. If you don't want to do it right, then just there's all kinds of things you can do. I can't help you with that. All I can do is help you with plugging into a process to help you do it the right way that will help advance the cause of Texas independence. And that is the place that you need to go. All right, guys. Man, this is fun. All right. Well, my friends, we are almost out of time. And as I said, there was way more talk than coffee tonight. Hang on, I'm taking another swig. Lots of good questions tonight, and very appreciative of those questions. Now, a couple of things before we begin the wrap up. March 2nd, which will be Sunday, is Texas Independence Day, and I hope that all of you are working somehow to celebrate this publicly, whether you're having a gathering at your house with your family and friends, whether you're participating in any official events that are out there. There's actually an event that made it to the TNM calendar. If you go to tnm.me/events, you will see there's an event in Blanco. If you're out that direction, they would love to have you there. But whatever it is, let's remember that it's important for us to celebrate the anniversary of the signing of the Texas Declaration of Independence on March 2nd, 1836. It is that act, that event that inspires us today to work like crazy for Texas independence. Now, we'll have another coffee talk. Not before March the 2nd, before Texas Independence Day. So let me just go ahead and tell you, happy Texas Independence Day. Go celebrate, right? Go celebrate. Make a big deal about it, because it's important that we never let our people forget that once we became independent, we were forever a nation, and we will forever be independent, even though we have this attachment to a federal system right now. But I am going to tell you this. The next coffee talk that we have will actually be on March the 5th, right? So it'll be a week from today. And while we saw people writing and tweeting and all this kind of stuff about Travis's letter from the Alamo, the one that he wrote the day after the siege began, March the 5th marks the drafting of, to me, the most important letter from the Alamo. So on March the 5th, on Late Night Coffee Talk, I'm going to read excerpts from that letter. And while I am going to take your questions, I am going to drill down on that letter. And we're going to talk about it a lot, because it means a lot. Because it was written, well, that was March the 5th is line in the sand day. So the letter was written March the 3rd, The next time we'll be together will be March the 5th, which is Line in the Sand Day, the anniversary of the day that Travis drew the line in the sand. So I'm going to take that letter that was written March the 3rd. I'm going to really unpack it. We're going to do some pretty cool things for Late Night Coffee Talk for Line in the Sand Day on March the 5th. And then, of course, on March the 6th is when we commemorate the fall of the Alamo. It's when that anniversary of really that fateful day where you had the 180 plus defenders of the Alamo give the ultimate sacrifice in the cause of liberty and independence. And so, next Coffee Talk is going to be very, very special, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things. In the meantime, I just encourage each and every one of you, particularly if this is your first time here and you are trying to get a handle on everything, obviously head over to TEXITnow.org. But look, if you're one of us, if you are ready to see Texas become a self-governing independent nation, then the first thing you need to do is you need to take that first step. And that first step is pledging your support. You go to tnm.me/vote. That's tnm.me/vote. And, register your support. Once you pledge your support, you become part of this Texas Nationalist family. You become part of an organization and a movement that is dedicating itself to seeing Texas become a free and independent, self-governing nation, right? You're pledging yourself to people that are brothers and sisters in the cause of the political, cultural, and economic independence of the nation of Texas. And so that is your first step. But once you go pledge your support, your next step is to head over and download the TNM app. Go to tnm.me/app to download it today, both Apple and Android. What that does is get you connected to TNM Social, which took a question from tonight, get you assigned to all the various groups that you're a part of for your house district, your county, etc. But the most important thing is it allows you to digitally connect with people that are just like you, that believe in the cause of Texas independence. And, it's important that we stick together in that way. Additionally, if you would like to help us continue to push this ball forward and keep moving ahead on Texas independence, we need your support. Head over to donate.tnm.me. That's donate.tnm.me. And look, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can give helps us continue to push this mission forward. We have a lot of things that we have got to do to not only get a referendum on independence, but to win a referendum on independence, and more importantly, to secure the results of that vote and secure our independence. So head over there today. Like I said, $5, $10, whatever you can give, do it. It helps us, help you, and help Texas. So be sure to do that. Okay, my friends, that I do believe is going to be a wrap. Just a couple minutes over. I mean, I can't complain about that. So what I'm going to do is thank you all for your questions and for your banter in the comments. I love afterwards kind of go back and read through them. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with the words that I leave you with every time we're together. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.